Hey everyone. Um welcome to the first episode of Jesus Saves podcast. I'm your host, Ashley M, and I'm so excited that you are tuned in today. Um this podcast is a faith-based podcast, a podcast talking about my faith in Jesus, navigating this Christian walk. And I just hope that it blesses whoever listens to it and that God is able to use me with this podcast and relay whatever he wants to relay to whoever needs to hear it. Now, if you were to tell me that I would be starting a podcast, I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Because I'm always talking about like there's so many there's so many podcasts here. I mean, I listen to podcasts. I just never saw myself actually making a podcast, but when God revealed that he wanted me to do this, it was clear that I wanted to walk in obedience and I wanted to um listen. So, the title of this episode is called There's Beauty in the Pain. And that could kind of sound a little crazy. Like, how can pain be beautiful? Like, usually things that are painful aren't beautiful. It's actually the opposite, right? But what I want to really talk about is how God can use, your pain for his glory. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself and how I found Jesus. So I grew up in a Christian church. So I always knew God. I knew God, but I don't think I really had a real relationship with God. It wasn't until I got a little older that I started to, develop that relationship. I think one of the pivotal things in my life that really pushed me to like really see God more was in high school. So this was junior year. Actually, it was a junior year. I think it might have been my sophomore year or my junior year. In high school, I loved attention. I was always someone who would do the most for attention, crack jokes, be the one dancing. Just I really liked getting seen, right? And during this time, I was just seeking a lot of validation from other people, especially boys. Like I felt like, if I did this or if I showed this, then, they think I'm cute or whatever, whatever. But I ended up getting into a situation with someone and it was just so bad. There was just a lot of drama tied to it. I was honestly like so stressed out. I ended up losing weight. It was just such a dark period for me. And during this time, I was like, okay, I need to pray more. I need to read the word. I need to do something because only God can get me through this. And at the time, my friend would send me like Bible verses every day to just encourage me because she knew that I was going through it because a lot of drama was going on. And literally, like during that period, like I literally was just constantly just praying, reading the word, and just seeking God for Him to just deliver me from the situation and just provide me with that peace. And even though it was painful in that moment, I was going through a lot. I was stressed, I was losing weight, like I genuinely was going through it. I found that when I sought him out and was really trying to establish a relationship with him, I felt peace and I felt okay. I felt that like all this time that I've been going to church, I've been brought up in the church. This is the time that I'm really like actually trying to cultivate a relationship. So I would literally be spending time in prayer, spending time reading the word. And that's what really started, I guess, a spark within me to really just push toward the direction of God. And obviously, with this Christ walk, it's not going to be linear. It's going to be up and down, right? So I think in when I went to college, freshman year I didn't really do much. Sophomore year I was okay. Let me go out more. So I'd be going out, going out to the few parties that I went to. I would end up drinking, getting drunk, doing the most, and literally like I remember vividly that I was at a homecoming concert at my college, and I literally was very annoying. Just being loud, very, very annoying. I remember going to the bathroom and I was feeling so anxious. I just felt like so uneasy, kind of like, dang, what am I doing? Definitely shouldn't be doing this. And I remember vividly being in the stall saying the Lord's Prayer. And I remember saying, like, you're a child of God. You're a child of God. And it's just the fact that, like, even in that moment, I had to remind myself of who I was. Like, that was just so deep. And I think it's just it just goes to show the character of God that even when we stray away, even when we, are out here in the world, God will still pull and tug at us to come back, to come back, to come back. And even in situations where we're tested, where we're tried, or we go through pain, God still pulls us closer to Him because He's a good Father. And uh, during COVID, right, 2020, that's when I was like, okay, we were all locked in, and I was just literally locked in, reading the Bible, praying, watching sermons, really, really getting deep, deep, deep in my walk. And I think COVID was a blessing for me because I had to just sit down with God. I couldn't be like, okay, let me go hang out with a friend, let me go do this, let me go do that. I fully had to be locked in and sit with God. And it was really such a blessing because 2020 was the year that I really was like, wow, I am locked in. Like, it was a flame, a fire. And I think from then on, I've been working and strengthening my relationship with Him. And honestly, like before, like in those earlier years, you know, I wouldn't like make Bible study, not make Bible studies or make videos or stuff like that. And I think earlier this year, I was like, no, I felt like a strong conviction to start doing that. So I started to make like Bible study videos on my Instagram, started posting about scriptures and stuff like that. Before, I wouldn't do that. So I feel like you could look at my page before and be like, she's a Christian? I didn't know that. But now I'm like so bold about my faith. And I know that's literally only because of God. But that was just a little of my testimony. But um the scripture that I want to dive into today pertaining to how there's beauty in the pain is coming from James. I have it written down here. Let me just get it out for really quickly. Get it out. Okay. So, James chapter 1 verses 3. And I'm reading from the New Living Translation. It says, "For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow." And I think that is so good because it's when we go through trials, it's when we go through hardships, is that's when we're fully leaning on God. We fully recognize that like we can't go through whatever we're going through without God helping us through it, without God delivering us. And it allows us to be fully dependent on Him. And I think when we go through the hard trials and the test, it's a way for God to strengthen our faith. It's a way for Him to prune us. It's a way for us to increase our perseverance and endurance. If you didn't go through any hard ships or any struggles or seasons where, your faith was tested, are you really growing? Is there really a change that's happening within you? And I think in those moments, in those dark or difficult seasons, you know, God is working within you. And that period that seems dark and just, man, when is it going to end? Is going to be that same period that you look back on and see how God has been good to you, how God got you through it. And that will honestly be your testimony. And I think it's just so powerful, looking back at my life and seeing how God has always been there, has always been covering me, always been protecting me. And I know that all those trials and hardships were not just in vain. It was a way that He was, you know, molding me. He was shaping me into who He called me to be. So don't lose heart. Don't get discouraged when you go through hard trials, if you're enduring pain, emotional pain, physical pain, whatever it may be. There's beauty in that. There's beauty in the pain because it's in those seasons that you are running to God, that you acknowledge that you cannot get through this without Him. And it's beautiful because you can look back at it and see, man, I see what you were doing. In that moment, I couldn't see it, but now I can see what you're doing. And I think it's just amazing. Another verse that I wanted to mention was also coming from James. It's James chapter 4, verse 14, excuse me. It says, "How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while, then it's gone." Honestly, it's just a reminder of the sovereignty of God, right? So God is ultimately in control of everything. And, you know, when we're going through seasons where everything is good and great, we're like, okay, cool, like, living our best lives. But then when we're going through seasons when things aren't so great, then it's like, man, God, like, why is this happening to me? Why? But it's like, when you really think about it, God does not owe us anything. We are really at his mercies each and every day. And I think whether you're going through high seasons, good seasons, or low seasons, we should still be having a heart posture of praise and worship. And it's difficult. It's difficult to worship and praise when you're going through hard times, but he's deserving of all our praise and all our worship. And no matter what, he's still God, right? No situation, no hardship, no trial is too difficult for God. He can literally change your situation in an instant. And even if he doesn't change it in an instant, if even if you're in a season of waiting, he's still good. The mere fact that you're alive, the mere fact that you have breath in your lungs, the mere fact that you have your faculties together, eyes to see, ears to hear, food on the table, clothes on your back, you are blessed, and that's enough to praise him. And I think it's just a reminder that life is so short. We think that, oh, we're young, we're going to live forever, but that's not the case. Life is so short. We're here one minute and gone the next. And we don't know when it's going to be your last day. Only God does. So it's just kind of like using your life, um, to glorify God and doing your part to add to the kingdom. And I think that it's just so beautiful to see how God can really change your life and transform your life and orchestrate things in a way where it's just like, man, that was nothing short of your goodness. Like, that was literally just a God thing. And I really just want to encourage anyone that's going through anything or struggling any way. Maybe they're struggling with their mental health. Maybe they're going through maybe you're going through financial difficulties. Maybe relationships are not in the best place, or whatever the case may be. I want you to be reminded that those periods, those times are temporary. Run to God, cling to God, because sometimes God will have to do certain things in our lives to wake us up so that we can come back to him. It might be painful, it might be uncomfortable, but it's for a purpose. And I just want you to be reminded that God is very intentional with everything he does. And whatever, was meant for evil will turn around for your good. And God can literally do anything. And I just want you to know that God is waiting for you to come back, run back to him. His arms are open wide. He's not like, man, you're out here doing this, bye. He's like, come back home. He literally leaves the 99 sheep just to get to the one that is lost. And it's just beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. Um, yeah. So that's really it. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. I pray that this was a blessing, and I just pray that you continue to seek God. Um, I love you. Have a blessed one.